Hello summoners and welcome back to the Mobalytics patch 8.20 video tier list. World Season. It doesn't get any better than this for League of Legends players and fans. To celebrate the occasion, Mobalytics will be giving away a mystery box filled with exclusive prizes straight from the World Championships in Korea. Unlock statues of your choice, Ash figures, and of course, RP. It's super easy to enter and all of you should do it. All you have to do is use the link in the description down below to join, and then make sure you tweet your Worlds Pick'ems to us using the hashtag Mobalytics, hashtag Pick'em, and hashtag Worlds 2018. Show us your Pick'ems and show us what you got. After day 1, NA looking a little questionable, but wow, EU looking impressive. So make sure you join our giveaway. Anyway, let's get into the tier list video. Kicking us off, let's talk about top lane. We have Jax, Singed, and Teemo doing really well and moving their way up. As far as Singed and Teemo, they find themselves in A tier because of the Liandry's buff that happened a couple of patches ago, and you see them doing well. As far as Jax moving into S tier, this champion has been dominant for a very long time, and he continues to have his reign of terror in the top lane. He has quite a few different build options and is pretty versatile in that aspect. You can see certain things like a Rage Blade, you can see things like Titanic Hydra. Obviously Trinity Force is his standard, but almost everything after that, whether it's Sterix Gauge or whatever you want to build, can be pretty situational. You can also take a multitude of different rune pages, and you can even take inspiration for that maximum attack speed early game, and he becomes very hard to trade against. And in the top lane for high elo now, we do see a couple new faces and a couple new champions here. We actually have Lissandra in A tier. If you watch competitive play, this Aftershock Lissandra by Licorice for Cloud9 seems really good, and this is something that we've seen personally and we've tried. This seems excellent. A couple other things, Poppy is doing well, Aurelia, Camille, Riven, all these champions do much better in high elo. You do see Pantheon in high elo as well. You would think he's more of a low elo stomper, but because low elo games go too long and it's hard to close them out, in quicker high elo games Pantheon becomes better. Onto the list for jungle, we have our first pick of the week in Nocturne, which we'll get to in a second. Also in S tier we still have Graves because while receiving a nerf he basically was slapped on the wrist and nothing really changed about him. As far as other A tier champions, we do have Taliyah, Kayn, Shaco, and Shyvana surprisingly doing well. Shyvana is good with both lethal tempo and press the attack, and we have a couple new faces in B tier, most notably things like Warwick, Hecarim, Volibear, Wukong, Vi. All these champions are doing pretty well in B tier, and you see Evelynn all the way down there as well due to her direct nerfs plus Dark Harvest. For Adam's pick of the week, he decided to go with Nocturne Jungle. Now this is not a brand new champion, of course, but this is something that he feels is really good and will start to go all the way back up to S tier priority. And a lot of this has to do with other junglers being nerfed and other Dark Harvest junglers being nerfed as well, with the Keystone being touched. And this means that Nocturne, who typically takes lethal tempo, means that you will be much more powerful, and especially the low elo because he's so easy to play at a basic level. For his learning curve, all you need to do is figure out how to use his ultimate correctly and realize that it's not 100% necessary to always dive the backline with it. Sometimes just pressing your R and giving paranoia is enough. Anyway, we think he'll be really good this patch, so make sure you give him a try. And for the high elo jungle list, you do see this discrepancy in high elo versus low elo in the jungle, where higher elos tend to favor the carry junglers more, and they are much more successful than the tank junglers who are much more successful in lower ranks. This obviously has a lot to do with how much easier the tanks are to play, but it's also just because the CC becomes more powerful in lower elos, and you really do make good use of your Amumu ultimate and your Udyr stun and your Rammus ganks. Whereas in high elo, sometimes just being the best player in the game on Nidalee is enough to 1v9 the game. Moving on to the middle of the map with the best mid laners on this patch, we see my pick of the week in Anivia in S tier. We have Veigar moving his way into S tier, which we'll get into in a second. We also have an update to last time's pick of the week. Adam picked Diana in A tier last time, and he turns out to be pretty correct. This was a pick that we saw the Spellbinder build adjustment, and with Spellbinder Diana is pretty darn good. For my pick of the week, I went with Anivia. Now, just like Nocturne, Anivia isn't brand new revolutionary. We're gonna hit you with this amazing new cheese tactic, but the good part about Anivia is that there's been a small build adjustment, and I just wanted to highlight her and her performance. Firstly, it is possible to go Electrocute on Anivia. The other runes are just fine, things like Comet, Airy, Phase Rush, whatever you wanted to take before, even Glacial Augment was good. Those things are still good, but I did want to highlight and look at the Electrocute page that has been popping up. On top of that, I want to highlight Anivia because of just how good she really is, and I still feel as if many people are missing out on her or not understanding where her power comes from. The insane wave clear that she has, her scaling, the fact that she has a great hard CC and a lot of damage, she can hard carry team fights, and even though she is immobile and very slow, her egg makes her hard to kill and gank in the early game. Especially in the lower MMRs, if you do learn how to play Anivia and you learn her skill floor and actually do learn the champion, she becomes so oppressive because so many people just don't know how to play around her, plus she's not pick banned a lot. Moving on to the high elo tier list for mid lane, you do see this trend. Again, it's somewhat similar to the jungle where the more supportive champions move on their way out, and the hard carry assassins and high damage dealers, things like Cassio, Aurelia, Jace, Katarina, Talon, LeBlanc, you see all of these champions doing much better in high elo. The one little caveat to that would be Heimerdinger. I mean, he's a damage champion, but he can be somewhat supportive, but that's the most amazing part about him, and it's crazy how good he really is. Moving on to our bottom lane carries. As far as S tier, there's not much to say here just because if you've watched our previous tier list, we've explained so many times why Yasuo and Misfortune are your go-to bread and butter ADCs for bot lane and for normal elo. As far as the rest of the pool, we actually do see our final pick of the week in Veigar bot lane, which we'll get into, and we see Sivir doing really well. That was a bit of a prediction from us last time, but yeah, Sivir's doing great. Things like Mordekaiser are underplayed and underutilized, but still good. Heimerdinger bot lane is still good. Vayne and Kai'Sa are somewhat interchangeable as carries right now for solo queue, except in higher elos Kai'Sa becomes a bit better. And moving into Hewitt's pick of the week with Veigar bot lane, I said that we would touch on Veigar, so let's do it now. As you saw earlier, Veigar is an S tier mid laner, and this is because he's taking the Glacial Augment page. This is something originally that popped up with Vel'Koz, and turns out can be pretty standard, and you can use it on a lot of different mages. Veigar is absolutely no exception to this, and if you think about it, Veigar bot lane does make a lot of sense. While it's very true that you do lose a lot of solo XP, what you make up for is the fact that you get that late game security. Yeah, you lose some solo XP, but also you want to get to that death cap as fast as possible on Veigar. He kind of does act as an APC with a weak early game, but a great gank assist, and then hyperscaling into the late game. Just having that support there to help you get towards your late game and have that security will be very nice. And for the high elo bot laners, aside from Yasuo, the rest of the non-traditional ADCs are gone here, and you do see marksmen taking over high elo. Things like Draven and Lucian become oppressive once you get to the higher MMRs. And last but definitely not least, let's move on to our support friends. We have Thresh moving his way into S tier. We have a Nami nerf, but it shouldn't impact her too much, which we'll talk about in a second. We do have Pyke doing well. We do have Sona, Zyra, and Brand filling out our S tier. Alistar is a great champion, and our mage supports are doing pretty well in B tier, things like Xerath and Vel'Koz and Lux, and then more tankier supports are popping up. Nautilus is making his first time on our support list this season, and he's a pretty good support. Nami did receive some nerfs on this patch, and they might have been the most impactful nerfs on the patch aside from maybe the Evelynn changes, but it's really hard to move her out of S tier just because of how good she was before the changes. We'll just have to see though. If you play Nami, play her a couple games, see how it feels. If you really do feel it and it starts to hurt, especially around that level 5 or 6 mark when you only have a couple of points in your ebb and flow, maybe the nerf is pretty darn impactful. And our last list this week, let's talk about high elo supports. Bard moves into S tier and becomes a great champion for higher elos. Mage priority goes way down. You only pretty much see Zyra being played, and you do see Nami and Sona moving down as well. Tank supports have potential to be S tier next patch, and they might even be S tier right now. Things like Alistar, even things like Nautilus could be really powerful. It just depends on the meta and the way that the ADCs shape out as well. Alright, this has been the Mobalytics patch 8.20 video tier list. Let us know what you thought of this tier list in the comment section down below, and make sure you check out our giveaway and use the product at mobalytics.gg.